Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. This one I'll be highlighting 7 or 8 players that I'd be looking to trade for ahead of Week 9. We're really getting into that time of the year where it really makes a lot of sense to really prioritize looking for players with favorable schedules going forward, whether that be over the next 4 or 5 weeks, doing what we can to get ourselves into the playoffs, or looking at players that I think are going to be positioned to really take our teams over the top once we do make it to the playoffs. So these are all players in general that I think are going to be trending up going forward, guys that I really want to add to my roster, and guys that I think can be significant difference makers for us. These are all guys that I'm in general like actually targeting on my own rosters as well, so keep that in mind for sure. If you guys do have any specific trade questions or any of that, just let me know in the comments below. I love helping you guys out there with any feedback on that. And yeah, that being said, let's just get into it. A lot of fun players to talk about today. Starting things off with the only quarterback I could really think of. It's the second time on this list, but it's going to be Dak Prescott. I'm hoping the Cowboys finally just learned at this point, and they're going to need to air it out if they want to be effective on offense. For whatever reason, they're trying to establish the run with the corpse of Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook. It's not going to work. They have no gas. They had like 56 rushing yards as a team, and they really tried to establish it this last week. They're just not a good running game, but with CeeDee Lamb and Dak, they can absolutely just have a lot of success through the air. Their defense is going to give up a lot of points. It's just going to put the Cowboys in a situation where they need to go out there and score points to win games. So there's a lot of reason to be excited about this passing game if they can just get out of their own way from a coaching standpoint. And the schedule really is soft going forward here. They've got the Falcons, the Eagles, the Texans, the Commanders, the Giants, the Bengals, the Panthers, the Bucks, and the Eagles the rest of the way. None of those matchups really scare you. The Texans, they haven't been fantastic on offense lately, so maybe that's a lower scoring game than you're hoping for. And then the Giants have been a little bit better on defense than you'd hope. But like regardless, like Dak is a guy who's set up for a lot of success here. He's effectively free, and I think he can be a top 5 quarterback down the stretch. If you'd heard someone say that this time last season when he was like the quarterback 15, hadn't done anything, he and CD took the league over basically over the back half of the year. They both finished as the number 1 player at their respective positions over the back half of the year. So I think that could easily happen again this year. And I think that if you're someone who's been dealing with Jordan Love, who just got banged up, if you were Anthony Richardson drafter, who obviously that didn't work out, if you have CJ Stroud who's been struggling, I think Dak's the guy that can really give you a significant boost at the quarterback spot, and I think he'll be effectively free. So I would certainly look to kick the tires on him. Next up, we got the first running back on this list for me. It's going to be Kenneth Walker. And the issue here was just this last week was so fluky. Seattle got absolutely smacked this week, and a lot of bad luck really happened there too. Just some awful luck near the goal line, and specifically, like these were situations where Walker would normally just get the handoff and score a touchdown, but you had one play, ball was snapped over Geno's head, went like 30 yards back. Walker did the right thing, went and grabbed it and ran back like 10 more yards. Fortunately for him, that turns into a negative 20-yard run, so that is obviously not a great thing for his fantasy output. Later on in the game, Geno Smith tripped over his own guy, ended a drive there. There was a lot of scoring opportunities there for Seattle that just didn't manifest. Then also they didn't have DK Metcalf, so the offense was obviously limited there. Seattle's offense is going to be a lot better going forward, so I think there's going to be a lot more opportunity there. And I think really Seattle, they just got down so early they wanted to keep Walker healthy, played a lot more Charbonnet than you normally see, and I still think that Kenneth Walker is going to be a top 10 running back the rest of the season. The upcoming schedule is also awesome. You get the Rams, the Niners, the Cardinals, the Jets, the Cardinals again, the Packers, Vikings, and Bears. So all of those outside of the Vikings are really favorable matchup for running backs. The Vikings are more of a pass funnel, so you don't love that one, but Walker's a guy who's been absolutely fantastic all year. Couple that with a good schedule. 2 games against the Cardinals. That's awesome. Packers and the Bears in championship week. The Bears are actually a pretty favorable matchup for running backs because they have such a good pass defense. You have to run on them. So Kenneth Walker could easily be a guy that's a huge difference maker down the stretch. I still view him as a top 10 running back, and it was a really down week for this last week, so it could be a buy low opportunity there. Next up, we got the second running back on this list, and it's going to be Aaron Jones, who I really do think can carry us down the stretch a little bit. And a main part of that is just the upcoming schedule. He has games against the Colts, the Jaguars, the Titans, the Bears, the Cardinals, the Falcons, the Bears again, the Seahawks, and the Packers. So really fantastic setup there. That playoff schedule of Bears, Seahawks, Packers, that is fantastic. Again, I mentioned earlier the Bears are a bit of a run funnel. The Seahawks, we've seen what every single team can do against them with the run. And the Packers are a team that have a pretty good pass defense. So you do have to run against them. And even more than that, like Ty Chandler is not seeing the field at all. He had 0 touches last week. Aaron Jones is a true workhorse running back on this team. This is an elite offense. Aaron Jones himself is extremely talented and just sort of bad luck this week. Still had 19 carries, had an awesome catch down the field. Just no touchdown. Like Aaron Jones is a guy that can be a top 10 running back the rest of the way, and I don't think he's going to cost you that. And I think it's a great time to buy low on him because also you got to remember he's through his bias. You're stealing a week if you're grabbing him there. You're grabbing a player that you didn't have to eat the buy on for. If you want to trade someone who has their buy coming up, I think it makes a lot of sense there. So Aaron Jones is someone that I'm really excited about going forward. And then if you want a little bit of a cheaper running back ad, I think Raheem Mostert is a pretty savvy buy low right now. I know he's coming off of a 2 touchdown game, but nobody really views him as like a valuable fantasy asset at this point. But the schedule does soften up here, and now that they got Tua back, this offense obviously has a significantly higher ceiling than it did earlier on in the year. We know how great Mostert can be with Tua. He had 22 touchdowns last year with him, so him scoring twice last week, not exactly a fluke. Like that's something Raheem Mostert can do in games where Tua is playing. The schedule upcoming, absolutely fantastic. The Bills, the Rams, the Raiders, the Patriots, the Packers, the Jets, the Texans, the Niners, and the Browns. That playoff schedule, not as juicy as you'd hope, but at least over the next 5 weeks here between the Bills, Rams, Raiders, Patriots, Packers, and Jets, really great setup there. So if you're a team that you're really hurting at RB2, you want to make sure you can get into the playoffs. I think Raheem Mostert's a guy that can certainly help you get there, and then we know what the upside is. Like if Devon Achane were to go down, Raheem Mostert becomes a workhorse running back and a really good offense. And even without that, he's getting valuable touches. He's obviously got a ton of touchdown upside, so in half and non-PPR, he's great. He's not going to cost you a whole lot at all, and I think he's a guy that you can just play as your RB2 going forward if you need to. Does have some upside because of that touchdown upside he's got. So I like Mostert. He's basically free, and he's someone that I would be okay starting every week going forward here. Next up, we got a receiver I want to highlight, and I'm going to start things off with Drake London, who really can be a top 5 wide receiver the rest of the season. That might sound hot takey, but he's the wide receiver 6 on the season right now, and I think people are a little bit underwhelmed with what he's done for us. So if the wide receiver 6 is underwhelming, saying he can be a top 5 guy is not at all surprising. The schedule up here, absolutely fantastic, especially in the playoffs here. You get the Cowboys, Saints, Broncos, Chargers, and then Vikings, Raiders, Giants, and Commanders. The Broncos and the Chargers are not fantastic matchups. That one's a little bit tough, but 2 great matchups coming up here between the Cowboys and the Saints. And then that last 4 games, Vikings, Raiders, Giants, Commanders, all really plus matchups for wide receivers. This is a team, their defense is not fantastic, so they need to throw the ball a ton. Drake London is clearly the guy they want to go to in the red zone. They just scored from outside the red zone 3 times this last week, so that's not going to happen on a regular basis. London's a guy that's a ton of touchdown upside. Clearly the wide receiver 1 in this offense, and I don't think he costs all that much. In my largest money buy-in league earlier today, so like that's the league I have the $2,000 buy-in in, I traded Waddle and Laporta for him. Waddle was a guy I wasn't relying on. I got him, he was on my bench, and Laporta's a guy I have Trey McBride in that league as well. So I didn't need to keep those guys, but like I think that's a trade you can certainly get done, and London's a guy that I would much rather have on that side of the trade there. So London is clearly obtainable. Got him in a super big money league for that's sort of the price there. He's a guy that I'm more than comfortable paying that for, and a guy that I do think can sort of carry us down the stretch if we need to, and is a guy that I'd love to have even as my wide receiver 1 going forward. And I'm going to keep banging the drum for this guy here, Chris Olave. Got to keep talking about him. I know I've mentioned him, I think 3 weeks in a row, but he's going to be a top 10 wide receiver the rest of the season. Without Shaheed in this offense, Chris Olave is going to have a 30+% target share in the offense. There's just nobody else that deserves targets. I mean, Alvin Kamara will get dump downs, and then other than that, it's Chris Olave and some Jawan Johnson, some Taysom Hill, some Bub Means. Like, Chris Olave is the offense outside of Alvin Kamara here, and Derek Carr is going to return this week, so that obviously is going to elevate the offense. He's just a much better player than Spencer Rattler. Not a huge compliment there, but he's much better in that regard. And the schedule here gets really soft. Again, you got the Panthers, Falcons, Browns, Rams, Giants, Commanders, Packers, and Raiders. I bet he goes nuclear this week against the Panthers. The Panthers are one of the worst defenses in the NFL. It's a get-right game for the Saints, who are I think 2-6 now after starting 2-0, so they'll look to sort of pour it on in this one. I think the Saints will win this game pretty handily. Chris Olave should have a big game. Then Falcons, Browns, Rams, Giants isn't great, but then Commanders, Packers, Raiders. A lot of really favorable matchups there for wide receivers, and Chris Olave is a guy that I think can get you into the playoffs and then potentially take you over the top when you get there. So I think people are still super frustrated about him. Nobody's like hyped about the game that happened this last week. Went over 100 yards, but it was probably on benches for a lot of people. So he's not a guy that people are still excited about or feeling like he's like turning a corner. And he is someone that I really do view as an elite asset the rest of the way. And you're not going to have to pay that. So go try and get Chris Olave right now. And one more receiver I want to highlight here is going to be Deebo Samuel, who gets the bye right now at a much-needed time. He's obviously banged up, dealing with pneumonia. He's got a rib injury. He needed this week off, and it's a really great time when that happens. You want the byes for your players to happen when it's going to really serve them the most, and this is a really great setup for him there. And I think it's really fair to say he's got the potential to be a top 5 wide receiver the rest of the season. Without Ayuk, this guy is going to get a ton of volume. He's going to see, 10 to 15 touches total every single week, and that kind of usage at the wide receiver position is absolutely insane. The running backs are banged up as well. They'll use them out of the backfield a little bit too, and this is a team, like, they're 4-4 right now. They've got to They've got to get things going. This is not a team that's performed at a high level right now. They need to keep winning a lot of games. So it's not like they can just rest these guys down the stretch. They're in the thick of it, trying to win their division. He's a wide receiver 25 so far, and he's going to be way better than that the rest of the way if he can stay healthy. The upcoming schedule is awesome as well. You have one tough game against the Bears in there, but other than that, you get Bucks, Seahawks, Packers, Bills, then Rams, Dolphins, and Lions in the playoffs. All three of those games should be shootouts. Really fun games. I think the Dolphins, the Lions, the Rams put up enough points against the Niners, but the Niners are going to have to score a lot. And Deebo's going to be a huge part of that. So I want Deebo on my rosters right now. He's a guy that I don't think is going to cost you all that much and can absolutely be a guy that'll sort of take you over the top the rest of the way. And just to round things out here, I wanted to highlight a tight end here. So I'm going to talk about Trey McBride, who has 0 receiving touchdowns on the season, missed a game due to injury, and he's still the tight end 3 on the season in PPR. So if that doesn't get you excited, I don't really know what will. A little disingenuous to say 0 receiving touchdowns because he did fall in the end zone for a fumble once. So has 1 total touchdown, but not a receiving touchdown. And I think that in general here, though, Trey McBride's just had some really awful touchdown luck. He's not the primary target in the red zone, though that is Marvin Harrison at this point. But he is a guy who's certainly better than a guy that's going to end up with 0 touchdowns. I bet he finishes with like 4 or 5 on the course of the season. And that means he's going to catch about 1 every other week the rest of the way, which is going to give you like a 3-point bump in points per game from what you're getting right now. He's currently averaging 13.2 PPR points per game. Bump that up to 16.2 if we add a half touchdown a week. That makes him the tight end 2, right behind George Kittle in PPR. So I think he's a guy that is poised for some significant positive regression, and he's still been fantastic so far. And I think what's really great about him right now is even though he's coming off a big game, he had 9 catches, 124 yards, nobody's all that excited about it because it happened in a week where every other tight end played well. A lot of tight ends scored touchdowns, and Trey McBride didn't. So people are sort of overlooking how great of a game Trey McBride had. I certainly think Trey McBride's going to be a significant difference maker at the tight end position. I do view him as the tight end 2 the rest of the way. I think I'd rather have Kittle, but McBride is someone that I would have right behind him. And the schedule is great too here. You get the Bears and Jets the next 2 weeks. That's not fantastic here. Like the Bears and Jets are pretty solid pass defenses. Maybe not the Jets, but at least the Bears are. But then after that, you get the Seahawks twice, the Vikings, the Patriots, the Panthers, and the Rams. So Trey McBride could absolutely just carry people for the final 6 weeks of the season here. And even if you have to eat 2 sort of slower weeks over the next 2, I think Trey McBride's going to be a huge difference maker for us and is someone that should not cost very much at all right now based off of what he's done so far, even though he's actually been really good. That'll do it for the buy low candidates this week. Up next, I'll be going over players that I'd be looking to sell high on. So players that either have really bad playoff schedules or have just overperformed to this point. So stay tuned for that video. That video will also come out today. I highly recommend you go watch that one as well. If you guys have any specific trade questions, just let me know in the comments below. I love helping you guys out, seeing what sort of trades you guys have cooking up, and doing my best to give you guys my opinions there. After that video, you guys will also get the start sit videos, so I'll go over every single matchup, cover which players I think should and shouldn't be in your lineups, and then Sunday morning, as always, I'll go live 1 hour before the games kick off and just give you guys the latest injury updates, answer your start sit questions live on air, and get you guys ready to roll and get you guys some wins in week 9. So if you want to make sure you don't miss any of that, just make sure you subscribe to the channel. That way you don't miss any of the future content. That way I can help you out the rest of the season. And then if you made it this far in the video, give it a thumbs up. It just helps me out quite a bit. That being said, appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you with the next one. Peace, everybody. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.